Thank you for joining us for May 2026 Voice of Liberation Tag Take Action Advocacy Group podcast. So today you will just have me. So I will be the only guest for today. So going to take some time to talk about some of the current events and some of the things that are going on with voting and all the good stuff. So my name is Fawn Walker Montgomery, and I am the CEO and co-founder for Take Action Advocacy Group, or TAG for short, is what we affectionately call ourselves. We are formerly known as Take Action Mon Valley. We have been around since 2014. We primarily do our work in Pennsylvania, in an area we call the Mon Valley, which is about 20-25 minutes outside of the city of Pittsburgh. So I always like to do that background. We also have done work in Atlanta and various other states with our partners who we work with a lot and our comrades. So our work is everywhere, which is why we changed our name from Take Action Mon Valley to Take Action Advocacy Group, because we understand that Black people in small communities are everywhere. That's our base, is Black, brown, marginalized groups in these smaller communities where your isms live and take place and are rooted and are by family, and there's so much corruption. A lot of times that's connected to racism. So that is where TAG comes in. Most of us grew up here in the Mont Valley area, if not here in Allegheny County. So the way that we take action is we have a complaint program, which we call social justice abolition, and people will call in and they will get information and help on how to navigate the criminal justice system. And most times you don't hear about those cases. We're just working with those families quietly. We help them make complaints against police officers. Most of the time, people are calling for police violence in schools, or just school violence is always connected with some kind of racism that they're experiencing. So we help people that way. We also have adult and youth chapters where we work on advocacy plans and we do training and community organizing. And we do training ourselves. We do a lot of PE in the community. So we do a lot of storytelling, which is in our podcast that we have here. And we also do blogs on our website. That's a little bit about us and how we take action. And you can find out more about us on our website, takeactionadvocacygroup.org. It's on our Facebook page, which is where this will be airing, as well as our YouTube page, which we put that up on there shortly after our podcast airs. So today I wanted to also talk about last time I mentioned this, the recent violence that has been occurring against Black women, and that is being reported. Now I say reported because this stuff has happened a lot. We're just hearing about it now, which is where most times with racism, it's been happening since the beginning of this country, but it's being recorded now. But it's nothing new. So I want to take the time out and say some of the names of the Black women, because this is where say their names came from. It came from advocacy for Black women. I know it has been attempted to be hijacked and stolen, but that's not what it was meant for. It was meant to let Black women and their names can be recognized after they're taken by violence. So Tammy McCollum, apologies if I'm saying that wrong, Dr. Sharina Weisner Fairfax, Nancy Mader, Ashley Janae Robinson, Felicia Burns. Those are some of the names of the Black women that have been recently murdered to violence. A lot of violence has been by their partners or people that they know, and it's all patriarchal violence against Black women, and it needs to be called out as such. It reminds me of something that is happening here locally with one of the advocacy cases we're working on with McKeesport School District. There was a viral video in April that was released of a child, a young Black girl, being like pulled and yanked and almost slammed by a male teacher. Full disclosure, we said this when we first posted this, that the gentleman is related to the young lady. It's her biological father. However, he's not been present in her life. She said that to the media, so we're just repeating what she communicated to us and the media. So she's already said that. Her and her friend were in the hallway, and they refused to leave the hallway. They were waiting for a teacher to get a scholarship letter. They both admit they should have left the hallway, but they did not. But regardless of that, leaving the hallway should not constitute almost being slammed and being yanked around and that kind of a reaction. I don't care, if this is her father or mother, whoever it is. This is a school. So the father shouldn't even been notified. There's a process. There's security guard. They got police there, which don't even need. So there's other people to call. And the fact that the father was even called is completely unprofessional. And we know that's not on the protocol. So we don't care that was her biological father. It doesn't change the patriarchal violence against young Black girls. So we wanted to make sure that we, called that out. And that's not even what the takeaway should be. That's more the elephant in the room for some of you all who try to say and try to deflect. Regardless, it was excessive. It wasn't right. What we seen in that video, which is on our blog, was not right. It brings up broader concerns about patriarchal and gender violence against Black women and girls. There was another video of the same employee involved in a situation with another student. But in these situations that we're talking about, how does refusing to leave a hallway lead to one student being pushed and slammed? Black youth can make mistakes, and it shouldn't end in trauma or exposure to the criminal justice system. At times in that district, and a lot of districts across the world, there's this zero tolerance policy, this law and order that always just affects Black students more. We spoke out about these things. We've done this in the past when we supported the students for suing the school district, the McKeesport School District, to get a Black student union. The students' biggest complaint was the dress code, the way it was being enforced, and the suspensions. So at the time, that data backed this up, and the data still does. That majority of the kids in McKeesport Area School District that are being suspended and expelled are Black students. Black students are allowed to make mistakes. This also connects to that push out that occurs with Black girls and contributes to the school to prison pipeline. Accountability matters, and Black youth can make mistakes without being over policed, over protocol, over policies. Like, these kids need to be able to make mistakes. We've had a lot of our adult leaders in scandals, been on the news, from a school district to the city to our own 47. So let's not act like people can't make mistakes, and most of those leaders have not been held accountable. Let's be a better model to these kids, and let's give these children some grace. Where is the compassion for these Black children? Where is the compassion for these young Black girls who were exposed to this level of violence for simply refusing to leave the hallway? Accountability matters. You can always go to our blog, which we have more information about this, but wanted to address that as well because these things have been going on, and we're not going to excuse them just because you all try to deflect from it. Want to now also talk about voting. Voting is coming up on May 19th. So please make sure that you go out and you vote. Here in Pennsylvania, we need to vote here in Allegheny County, which is where we're at. We need to make sure we're going out and voting. Even if that person has no opponent, we need to go out and vote and make sure that we keep the people that you want to keep in there. So make sure that you're going out to vote. So we were doing a lot of canvassing for voting, and we did some voter events as well. So please make sure you go out and vote Tuesday, May 19th. Every vote counts. Speaking of voting, I want to bring up what's going on with the Voting Rights Act. So I know that's been a hot topic that's been going around lately, so I want to take a little bit of time to explain it. So the Voting Rights Act is a lot of things. It gives Black people the right to vote, but there's also a lot of things within the act. So when people say the Voting Rights Act is under attack, what they're specifically talking about is the U.S. Supreme Court, led by the conservative majority, voted to dismantle key protections of the Voting Rights Act. So in a 6-3 ruling on Louisiana versus Collas, and I could be saying that wrong, it severely weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which allowed minority communities to challenge electoral maps that diluted their voting power. I'm going to say that again. This key protection of the Voting Rights Act that they are messing with was Section 2, which allowed minority communities to challenge electoral maps that diluted their voting power. So they are taking this and they're now saying that it only applies when plaintiffs can prove intentional racial discrimination, a standard that is extremely hard to meet. So they're, in essence, trying to get rid of this piece of the Voting Rights Act. And they're doing that by redistricting. So they're saying that now, since they've passed this, if you can't prove that there's intentional racial discrimination, how the hell can you even prove that? We know it's happening, and they know it's happening. And that's why this was put within the Voting Rights Act. And that standard is extremely hard to prove legally the way that they've written it. And that's why they wrote it that way. So redistricting is the process of redrawing the boundaries of electoral districts to ensure fair and equal political representation. It occurs primarily to reflect changes in population over time, ensuring that each district contains roughly the same number of people so that every vote carries similar weight. So there's no population change going on now. That's not happening. They're intentionally going after the Voting Rights Act, which gives Black people the right to vote, and are dismantling it piece by piece. And they're starting with messing with our districts. So that's why you see people who marched and were advocating and speaking out in Louisiana. This happened, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, and I believe Virginia as well. So it's happening everywhere. We can't, especially the people up north, we can't act like, oh, this won't happen to us. It absolutely will happen to us. It's been happening slowly, especially in Allegheny County. They've been redistricting for years now. And you've got to pay attention to the fact that they're going after these Black districts. So that's what they mean when they say they're trying to take away our vote, because they're trying to redistrict our communities. So our vote doesn't have as much of an impact if we're in an all Black district. So this is happening in real time now. Our comrades are on the ground down south fighting for this. We stand in solidarity with them. What they're doing to the Voting Rights Act is racism, flat out. There's no other way to say it. And we need to make sure that we are resisting and fighting against that. And also taking the time to explain to people why people are so upset and redistricting and what that means, and that they're trying to come after Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is a key protection of the act. So please make sure you spread the word about that, especially we're up north. This affects all of us, and we need to make sure we're supporting our siblings and our comrades down south. Ashe. So I wanted to make sure I talked about that. We are still doing our McKeesport Police Advocacy campaign. We've been talking about that a lot lately, especially on our social media. We have some wins that we've been highlighting. We did win the lawsuit, and we were able to get the complaint process online, and that'll be in our, put that in the comments. It's on our blog as well, but people still need to make these complaints. It does help down the line when you're talking about backing up your lived experience by data, which is important. So make sure that you're filing the complaints. We'll go with you all. They're working on making sure they're anonymous, and you can just do it online because that's what was in the lawsuit. The ACLU is working with them on that to make sure that happens. So also, one of our demands was that social workers respond with police, and they are working with the A-team now. We went to the council meeting, we just went, and we inquired about that process. So we share, when I say we, McKeesport shares that with, I think it was Glassport and a couple other communities, the A-team, and there's a tier level. So you can contact the A-team for them to come out. And if there's a certain tier, then they go out with the police. We would like them to go out all the time, but they're doing this tier level piece. So we have asked the city of McKeesport to report, just like they do monthly at the council meetings, how many times they're using the A-team. And we're also going to start to inquire about race-based data. and making sure they're connected with that. Once again, having data to back up what we know is already happening with our lived experience. We continue to get complaints about McKeesport Police. We said this to them at the council meeting, and we will continue to support people in making sure that they make that complaint official with the city. And we'll continue to hold them accountable until all of our demands are met. And you can look on our blog for those demands. We're pushing for a police review board. They can start their own or opt into the one in Allegheny County. We're pushing for the police budget to be defunded by 10%, put that money back into Black communities, so divest and invest. We're pushing for that as well. We're pushing to make sure that the police are utilizing the A team, and the social workers can be responding with police. We still have our boycott in place. We also want the officers that were involved in hurting the ever 70-year-old Black man last year and fracturing his ribs, Mr. Stinson. We want them terminated. There was another viral incident last year as well with a Black couple. We want all these officers terminated. So we're still going to be pushing for that. And that's why we still have our boycott, which basically says that, and this is for anybody watching who really wants to show us solidarity. We have a sign-on letter that you can sign on to as an individual or as an organization. We ask people to come to these McKeesport City Council meetings and school board meetings about the situation I spoke about earlier with the young lady. So the two young Black girls. So if you want to come out and show solidarity, please come to those meetings. We put those dates on our blog. We put them on our social media. In addition, we're asking people to boycott the events in the city. We're still asking for that because what happens is you'll do an event with them. If you notice on their Facebook or social media or website or even a magazine they send out, there's all these pictures of Black people at events. Why do they not do this for all the white events that happen? They do this so they can give this image that it's really performative, like they're actually doing something. And let's be clear, TAG is after policy change. So we're not after concerts. We're not after donations to a fish fry. We're not after donations to a community day. We are after effective policy and programmatic change that is going to make things equitable in the city of McKeesport for Black people and other marginalized groups. That's what we're after. So all the concerts, and I know that there's been events happening and the city has either donated or come, and the first thing we'll do is ask you to take a picture. We're asking you to be wise about that because you're giving the impression that the only thing we're asking for is a concert or access to a concert. And we don't want any of that, whether that be for Juneteenth, July 4th, whatever. What we want is actual policy change. What we want is these officers terminated so they're not out here doing that to more Black people. That's what we want. Wanted to reiterate that because I do feel like there is confusion. There's all this community chatter, about TAG's boycott and like why we're not doing certain things with the city of McKeesport, why we're telling people to not do them. And that is why, because we want sustainable change. That is like changing a policy, changing a program. We want access. We ride around, we do a lot of canvassing, we're knocking on doors, and we're looking at the differences in the communities from the 7th Ward to the 8th, and the 8th to the 12th. Why do we have all these vacant apartments, vacant buildings? Some houses are falling in. Why are some communities safer than others? Those are the kind of changes that we want to see. So we necessarily don't want the concerts. We want them to stop beating up Black people on the streets, these police officers. We want to be able to have access if we want to start a business over here, if we want to buy a building. We want to be able to go and just buy the building. If we have to go to the redevelopment authority, we want to be able to go there and make sure the process is fair and equitable. That is what we are after. So we want to be clear about that. When people are complaining, why the boycott, why can't y'all just, no, we're not going to be quiet about it. We're not going to stop speaking up about it. We have to make sure that we continue to resist. And we cannot allow to let them off the hook just because they may decide to donate here or donate there or give us access to having a concert or event. That's nice and everything, but it's not going to help our children's children in the future. Shay. So we wanted to make sure that we put that out there and kind of close with that. All the things that we kind of talked about today, from violence against Black women to how that connects with our local advocacy with this viral video with these two young Black girls, um, to the Voting Rights Act being slowly dismantled, and specifically Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act that basically weakens minority communities to challenge electoral maps to do or that affect our voting power. And they're doing that now through redistricting, is where they're redrawing the boundaries of electoral districts to ensure fair and equal protection. So now they are just redistricting, and it's not equity centered, it is racism centered. And that's why people are speaking out. And people need to continue to speak out, and TAG stands in full solidarity with our comrades in the South speaking up about this. And this is also creeping up to Virginia, so it's not like it's just the South. And we all should be concerned about those things. So we talked about the Voting Rights Act, the violence against Black women. And then we ended by talking about the boycott that we have in connection to McKeesport Police and why we will continue to have that. It is imperative that we hold police officers accountable here in the Mon Valley and Allegheny County and everywhere. They're going to be even more empowered now because of 47. And that doesn't mean that our voices weaken. That means our voices get louder collectively together. So speak up even if your voice is shaking. Speak up even if you're scared. Do it scared. Shay, thank you for joining us on our TAG Voices of Liberation podcast for May 2026. Next month for June, we will have some of our active families we're working with and some of the things we're doing with them. We'll have somebody here talking about housing injustice, pedestrian awareness, and probably police violence as well. So you check us out in June, and we'll definitely continue our conversation about violence against Black women and young girls. So thank you for joining us on our Voices of Liberation podcast.